The latest, according to the press.
How did COVID-19 get its start? A leading infectious disease expert says he is not convinced it developed naturally. And Dr. Anthony Fauci calling for an investigation.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. President Trump said that a long time ago and was called xenophobic and racist for even questioning the communist government of China. But now Biden says he'll find out if China made this flu in a lab or not. Remember the narrative the press pushed about Trump being beholden to China from a loan they held for a week 30 years ago? But they don't mention how Biden and his family are actually beholden to China.
Biden's son inked $1 billion deal with a Bank of China.
This is what the press was saying early on.
I would always be skeptical. I think they handled this in the beginning with a great deal of secrecy in China. They forced the initial whistleblower, a doctor, to recant.
He got canceled.
And issue a letter of confession saying that he was spreading illegal rumors. Then he died.
That they are furious with the Chinese government.
Then Trump was critical of China.
Because we believe it could have been stopped at the source, it could have been stopped quickly, and it wouldn't have spread all over the world. And we think that should have happened.
And the media's reaction?
Trump has repeatedly targeted China's handling of the virus outbreak. That includes at one time floating the theory that the virus may have originated in a Wuhan lab. China denied those accusations, and the World Health Organization later rejected the theory.
How do you float a theory?
China certainly feels that is what is happening now, with people calling it the Wuhan flu or the Wuhan virus or the China virus. This is a virus that came from the territory of China. This is a bat virus, not a China virus.
Why the president would go as far as to describe it as a foreign virus, that is something we'll also be asking questions about.
Could it be because the press called it that for months?
The Wuhan coronavirus.
The Wuhan coronavirus.
From the Wuhan coronavirus.
The Wuhan coronavirus.
Wuhan coronavirus.
Which originated, as we know, in Wuhan, China.
And once again, easily conditioned and controlled people went along with the narrative.
Scientists have been naming diseases after the places they came from for a very long time. Zika is from the Zika forest. Ebola from the Ebola River. Hantavirus, the Hantan River. There's the West Nile virus and guinea worm and...
I know, I used this recently. I'm just reminding you how hypocritical, biased, and willfully ignorant some people have been.
Rocky Mountain spotted fever and, of course, the Spanish flu. MERS stands for Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome. It's plastered all over airports and no one blogs about it. So why should China get a pass?
I know why China always gets a free pass when it comes to a certain political party.
Biden's son inked $1 billion deal with a Bank of China 10 days after he and his dad visited the country.
In 2007, researchers at the University of Hong Kong wrote, the presence of a large reservoir of SARS-like viruses in horseshoe bats, together with the culture of eating exotic animals in southern China, is a time bomb.
When other people said that, they were called xenophobic. Back in 2009, CBS News interviewed Dr. Fauci about H5N1.
And we all admit that. Right now, if we had an explosion of an H5N1, we would not be prepared for that.
But neither is the rest of the world. If H5N1 were to become highly contagious in humans this winter, it could spread to every country in the world in a matter of months.
Wow, that's exactly what the Wuhan flu did. Seems like Dr. Fauci had all this time to help prepare for something like this. He didn't do anything. Oh, that's right. It's Trump's fault because reasons.
Dr. Fauci gave EcoHealth $3 million. EcoHealth then gave $600,000 to the Wuhan lab.
I know some homeless downtown that could have used some of that money.
Did Dr. Fauci know the Wuhan lab did not operate with the highest level of safety standards as reported by our own State Department personnel in China? Why are we funding research in a lab in Wuhan, China in the first place?
Because a certain political party is the lapdog of communist China.
A joint communique on the establishment of diplomatic relations between the United States of America and the People's Republic of China, January 1st, 1979. Our rapidly expanding relationship requires a kind of structure that only full diplomatic relations will make possible.
And look at how well their structure worked out for us. Millions of manufacturing jobs lost. Those businesses closing because of it. It all can't be that bad, right?
Biden's son inked $1 billion deal with a Bank of China 10 days after he and his dad visited the country.
This morning, we have unsealed a separate indictment of a Chinese national working as a scientific researcher at Boston University who failed to mention on her visa application that she is also a lieutenant with the People's Liberation Army. This office has indicted another Chinese national for trying to smuggle vials of biological material out of the United States to China and lying about it to federal investigators. The FBI arrested the chair of the Department of Chemistry and Chemical Biology at Harvard University for making false statements regarding his involvement in China's Thousand Talents plan and his affiliation with the Wuhan University University of Technology.
Since 2018, nearly 36 cases involving scientific and technological espionage were from China.
I think the American people like to know especially what they've went through over the last year.
Even after the CCP did notify the WHO of the coronavirus outbreak, China didn't share all of the information it had.
Tedros Adhanom, the Director General of the WHO, got his job with support from China. This is what he said about China's response to COVID.
The Chinese government is to be congratulated for the extraordinary measures it has taken to contain the outbreak. The speed with which China detected the outbreak, very impressive and beyond words. China is actually setting a new standard for outbreak response, and it's not an exaggeration.
Dr. Li Wenliang, back in December, he noticed a number of patients with symptoms resembling SARS. That's when he tried to warn people on social media to take protective measures. Dr. Li was detained and accused of making false comments and spreading rumors. Chinese social media users have posted demands the government apologize to Dr. Li. Many of those comments have now been censored.
Because that's what communist governments do.
The president still silenced on social media this morning, banned from Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat.
Conservatives are feeling the heavy hand of censorship in the United States and across Western Europe.
A writer at Vox.com demanded that YouTube ban Steven Crowder. Why? For the crime of insulting him. Amazingly, many in the Washington press corps agreed.
The Chinese government was not happy with that reference to Taiwan as an independent country, so Sina quickly apologized in Mandarin.
Do you know what the Chinese then do with a video like that? They use it as absolute propaganda.
That must be where our media learned it.
Did it jump from an animal to humans, or was it a leak from a lab in Wuhan, China?
Nobody seems to entertain the possibility that communist China did it on purpose. It sure helped them and a certain political party.
American people probably like to know, after all, they've had their liberties assaulted for the past year.
No, we're just becoming more like China.
President Biden's Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, said this: that's not our assessment. Secretary of State Blinken said, we've got real concerns about the methodology and process that went into the WHO report. Secretary of Health and Human Services Becerra said, quote, we have to understand how COVID surfaced, but the select committee in Congress on COVID doesn't want to know.
The good news is a third of us have had it. A third of us have been vaccinated. Of those over 65 years old, 85% have gotten the vaccine. They think we're too stupid to figure this out. Most people over 65 have figured it out. But in a free country, it's your decision to make. In a free country, you decide what your risks are. Every time you get in a car, every time you ride a bike, what you eat, all of these are risks you take. And in a free society, you make them. The government doesn't get to make these decisions. There's no precedent for closing down restaurants.
There is when you want to control people, what they do, when they work, how they vote.
Washington Post column 2 weeks ago, understanding the cause of the pandemic and ensuring that something like it never happens again is the most important question we face. The Republicans are taking the first steps in a long overdue effort, but without backing from Democrats, who are conspicuously absent from these efforts, the investigations will struggle.
And if any of you have had it and you have children at home, you were sick and you didn't notice your kids getting sick, about half of them got it anyway, because the kids show very few symptoms. And this is the good news. It's being hidden from everyone as we put on more and more mandates, and as the governor keeps everything locked down, they're ignoring the good news.
Nicholas Wade, former New York Times science writer, said this, quote, it's a stretch to get the pandemic to break out naturally outside of Wuhan and then without leaving a trace to make its first appearance in Wuhan. But he says for the lab escape scenario, a Wuhan origin for the virus is a no-brainer. Wuhan is home to China's leading center for coronavirus research. Researchers were genetically engineering bat coronaviruses to attack human cells.
Why would they want to do that?
They were doing so under minimal safety conditions. If the virus with an unexpected infectiousness had been generated there, its escape would be no surprise. Republicans want to know, Americans want to know, why don't Democrats in Congress want to know where this thing started?
I know why.
Biden's son inked $1 billion deal with the Bank of China 10 days after he and his dad visited the country.
Also realize that what we've done with the school system, closing the school system and shutting it down without an infection. Does anybody not question that?
There are many critical thinkers who question a lot of what's been going on. But those who believe and trust the media, they don't think you should be allowed to ask those questions. And if you do, you're a racist.
A few years ago, you know what used to happen, and it's happened during most of my adult lifetime, if you got the flu at school and 10, maybe 15 kids were sick, they'd close the school down for a few days or a week or two and let it smolder and abate, and then they'd open the school again. Do you realize we closed down every school in America without a kid getting sick? I'm not saying kids didn't get sick, but there were no epidemics. At the time, they didn't know this, but we do know now, kids don't get sick from this. They very rarely get sick from this. They very rarely die from this. If you're under 25, you are more likely to die from a lightning strike than you are from COVID. Now, the opposite is true if you're above 75. It is a dangerous disease, and we should all acknowledge that. But we should also acknowledge something that Dr. Fauci won't tell you, refuses to tell you, and it's probably the most important thing I'll tell you today. If one of you gets COVID, there is a treatment, but there is a window of time in which you must take the treatment. It's called monoclonal antibodies. If you begin to get a bronchitis and you begin to cough and you're getting sick, particularly if you have any age on you or any extra weight on you, at the earliest signs of bronchitis, you can get the monoclonal antibodies and they'll save your life. So instead of these TV doctors saying, oh, the mask is so good, and if you'll just wear your mask is more important than the vaccine. No, it's not. 80% of the people getting this are wearing a mask.
You're encouraged to have the medication Narcan on you in case someone you encounter overdoses, since that's an epidemic. Pills for erections the morning after, but you have to jump through hoops to get something to help you with the China flu, and most people didn't even know about it. Just vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. Welcome to Biden's America. And it's just a coincidence the Democrat Party's goals are eerily similar to the Communist 45 goals as read into the congressional record in 1963, one of which was to take over one or both major political parties here in the U.S.
For many years now, Democrats have realized that the only way to turn their radical plans into a reality is to take more power and money from the American people and give it to Washington. They want control over almost every aspect of your life.
If communism has been the enemy of freedom, and we've so graciously welcomed and tolerated those who support that ideology, allowed them to set up in our educational institutions, buy off political parties and special interest groups that now suddenly share the same goals, allowed them to steal our intellectual property over and over and over again, ignored any harm they've done to us or the world, without even questioning their intentions, only to have communism now considered a great thing.
So they saw COVID as an opportunity to advance the interests of a global climate bureaucracy. Their pet media marveled about the environmental benefits of lockdowns, again, ignoring human suffering.
I guess now that even history's been censored, many people don't know what's coming. I don't know, just call it how I see it.